Welcome to Module 2, Photo and Video. We are rolling right along and we are talking now about photography for social, building on what we've already established. So, the basics, fundamentals of taking a photo on your phone and a few surprise tricks, maybe not so surprised depending on how savvy you are. Subject matter. We're talking about what type of imagery best tells your story. How can you incorporate those elements and maybe composition rules, but more so subject matter that really is going to resonate and tell your story in the best possible way. Lighting, one of the most important pieces of the photography puzzle. We're going to determine the types of light, where they're best used, and I'm going to show you an amazing trick to determine where the best light is in your space with the simple use of your hand. Photo tools. So we've got hardware as well as software, and we're going to look at the lay of the land in each and show you our best tools and best bets for moving forward. So a few things we often forget, the basics, let's call them. Some of these are so eye-rollingly obvious, but worth reminding you. Wipe your lens. We've all been there. You get home or you get to your computer, you look at the photos you shot and they just don't seem like, you thought they would. They're blurry or they're just kind of washed out or whatever it is. Well, did you check to see just how clean that lens was? Given that your camera is also in your purse and your pocket and your grimy hands all the time, chances are that lens needs regular wiping. So consider that first and foremost before you ever shoot a thing, even a FaceTime to your grandma. Assess the light quality of a space. This is so important. There's only so much a filter or a preset or any kind of editing tool can do if you don't have enough light coming in to light the subject matter as well as the entire photo after the fact. So we want to make sure that we've got the light that we need and the right kind of light, and that is our starting point always when it comes to quality photography. Take a step back. It really helps, especially when we think about some of those composition rules with focal points and points of view, to just reassess the scene. Maybe if you were to get a wider view or just a different perspective and kind of see things from a broader, far away or third-person view, you might see it entirely differently. So step back from what you think to be the ideal scenario and take the time to set up your shot properly. Next, and similarly, think about composition. Is this ideal for horizontal or vertical? And part of that is determined and dictated by the environment or the subject matter that you're shooting, but also by the platform that it's going to end up on. This is so key. We often say work backwards from the end result and from the end placement and platform that you're going to really be showcasing this. Unfortunately, there's only so much cropping we can do with photography and video that can be applied to both a horizontal and a vertical platform. So if you're shooting something for LinkedIn and it's pretty, horizontal and you want it to really perform well or appear as a quality image in your feed, it may not be the best photo to also utilize in your Instagram stories, which are going to be obviously a very vertical placement and platform. So just thinking about it, you may have to shoot something twice. You may need to get an even broader perspective or shot, and knowing that the composition won't be the same either if you attempt to crop something after the fact. Composition being so important to hit home the actual photo to the best of its ability. And then don't forget about exposure and focus. These are built into our cameras. They're so easy to adjust. Gone are the days where you need to play with your lens and really manually focus things or hold the exposure down just halfway until it focuses and your camera catches up to your eyeballs. We now have this ability. Our phones do it automatically, but we can do it easily with certain little tools inside our phone. We can call these the additional hidden iPhone camera features. You probably know about some of them, but again, they're worth pointing out. Just how quickly you can access your camera, depending on the make and model of your phone and also, the software update. You have probably a shortcut somewhere on your phone to get to your camera quickly, which is important, especially if you're capturing a testimonial from someone or a photo, on the fly. And also just to capture or to hit your photo reel and your archives really quickly when you're looking for something. So hopefully you've got that nailed. Setting your focus by tapping your screen and having it focus, again, maybe further than it already is automatically. Ditto for your exposure. So tapping that little sun that appears when you touch your screen with a certain in a certain place, and then you get the sun icon up or down that allows it to brighten up or darken. So you can adjust the exposure further than what's already happened automatically on your phone. You can lock that focus and exposure by holding the screen until that little yellow text appears, the AEAF lock. If that's part of your software, which it generally is, so that can be helpful. And then use photo bursts by tapping and holding the shutter. Likewise, we can turn our phones into live mode shooting, so we get a little bit of a longer photo, and then we can capture the one in the middle that was just right when the person wasn't blinking. So you might have either or both of those capabilities. Taking your photos with the volume button on the side, helpful for selfies when you're, using your thumb on the side to capture what your fingers can't reach in your shutter button. And also with your Apple headphones is another option. So you've got little shortcuts here and there that are really helpful, both with, actual features of your camera as well as the photo taking action itself. Always shoot in full frame instead of square, as we mentioned, just to have a higher quality and larger image to use. We want to have as much image capture, as much as of the scene captured as possible, and then adjust as necessary. Typically the quality is low on that front facing camera. So really try and use the backside camera on your phone whenever possible. And even sometimes when shooting video, you may want to certainly not shoot from the front, but or even some lives, you may want to set it up in a way that you can't see what you're shooting, just for the sake of that crisper, better photo. And then, HDR. This is something that improves the exposure of your photos and gives you a better quality file in the end to play with. So higher resolution, larger file. And when shot in HDR, it goes without saying that you're going to get this type of photo. It may cause more data usage. It may cause more storage usage on your device, your mobile device, as well as your editing software or computer. But also really important to have if you're using your photos for commercial purposes and you need something more than a digital ready file. You need a print ready or commercial type photo. Flash smartphone photography, use it in dimly lit situations. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't. That's one thing that in my opinion, hasn't quite kept up or gotten there yet. It's getting better, and in fact, our phones are so good at capturing light at night that you almost don't need a flash. But the flash that we add in can sometimes be helpful and sometimes not great, but we'll look at some other lighting options. As I said, shooting in live mode on your iPhone allows you to choose a key photo from a sequence of photos that will be in that almost burst file. And then many phones have a timer feature, and this can be really useful. You watch people take 1,700 selfies just to find the right one, but photographers and brand photographers, marketers also use it, to capture something that they really need to be behind the lens for or in the photo with, especially when it comes to people or interviews or testimonials. And they simply don't have the resources to have someone behind the scenes. So I would encourage you to play with the timer and, utilize it as needed. Subject matter, of course, to answer the very common question that we're asked almost daily, yes, but what should I shoot? What am I capturing images of? Well, this is where we can really hone in on how and what we're using to tell our story. So most strong social feeds are made up of several types of imagery that can exist separately, but also as part of a series, kind of like one of those photo trends we were looking at, where you've got a 9 grid made up of images that are a bigger picture as well as individual standouts. So this, certainly applies for portraits, flat lays, so that down point of view where you've got multiple products probably placed strategically in an image. Scenery though as well, still life, products, etc. So, it can be part of some kind of ongoing series that's all in a row and it happens sequentially, like Humans of New York or, some of those other examples we looked at. Or they can be peppered in here and there, but they add on to a certain category of your content, if you will. If you recall in course number 2, content writing and publishing, we talked about our brand pillars. So the 3 or 4 themes of your content that are unique to your business alone, that help you tell the brand story you need to and sell your products or services. But then the content categories below that add variety to your pillars. So those are things like how-tos, did you knows, behind the scenes, testimonials, ask me anythings, top 10 lists, facts and figures. So think about the types of imagery that could possibly form a series like that, an Ask Me Anything series where you've got, a different expert weighing in every time. I can see that photo series coming to life. A how-to where it's, hands or flat lays or carousels, which have elements being added to each photo, maybe with some text overlay every time. A good feed should be well thought out and curated so that all the images, when viewed together, appear as a consistent gallery. Now, more and more in our content marketing efforts, we're talking about how things are a little less polished than they used to be. And this doesn't apply for every single brand. Some of them are still extremely curated and perfectly thought out, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. But others are getting a little bit more human and personable. And, post-COVID, we are seeing just so much more of a desire for authenticity and relatability and just like human contact. So show me some memes, humor, personality, a little bit less perfection and curated gallery, a little bit more you and your brand and your people. So this is up to you. But regardless of how polished and curated your feeds are and your social content and imagery, it's got to have some consistency to it so that when we look at it, we know it's you. I recognize this image or this brand or this feed as this company that I follow, engage with, love, trust, know, etc. So it's not just perfection that we're aiming for, or we're not aiming for that at all. We're aiming for consistency, compelling imagery, and on-brand visual assets where we can see and sense your purpose and your values and just your people. So get creative. Try to brainstorm a series that you could possibly shoot at once or on batch. We're talking a lot about process all throughout our social media marketing certificate, if you're a part of that. And, really what it comes down to is planning ahead of time so that you know the campaigns and pillars and seasons that you're, content marketing around. And of course, if we can create and make it easier for ourselves by shooting these at one time, creating a shot list in advance, all the better. The very last line there, a flat lay series that complements your nature portrait series. Not only is this about planning, but it's about a different type of photo that we're going to be shooting again to add to our photo bank and use for that campaign next month or through the next quarter. So if I'm doing some kind of real life still imagery series or portraiture or landscape series or whatever it is, video series, could I implement some kind of studio shot or flat lay or product heavy shot or graphic that's going to complement that other series that I've got going on? So just being creative and thinking about how our photos, our photography, and our graphic assets are blending together. We talked a lot about this in graphic design in the course before this one. We looked at examples of brands doing this really well, where they're blending, illustrations, graphics, and then real life imagery, and it just creates such a variety and interest in our feeds. Lighting. All right. So lighting is our friend, and it can make or break a photo 100%. Again, all the filters and the presets in the world aren't going to help you if you don't have good lighting and you didn't start from a pretty decent place. You will learn how to see light after a while. Every photographer I know just will capture photos when the light is good. You've probably done this yourself. You just think, holy smokes, this smoky sky and gorgeous sunset, I've got to take a photo. Well, what if we found those types of scenes all the time because we knew what we were looking for and we planned for it? So generally we've got natural light and artificial light, and the natural tones are going to be white, blue, orange hues, just all the things that would elicit the feeling of sunlight or daylight. Soft natural light is really flattering and is usually white to blue in tone. If you are buying light bulbs and you'll see soft white light bulbs, they'll be good for an office, or they'll be, used in retail locations, whereas warm whites are a lot more orange or golden in their hue. Direct sunlight has high contrast and it can produce dark shadows. So while sunlight and light coming in a window or in a building is awesome, or being fully outdoors exposed to the sun can really kind of, make your skin tone look great and add lots of color and light. If it's too direct, you're going to get shadowing and glare and sometimes squinting. And sometimes it's just not nearly as good as something that's a little bit softly filtered, but you'll see that the more that you start to play with it. Artificial light, as it sounds, can be green, yellow, or pink, even white in tone, bright white, sometimes that bluish white. It's not the best light for portraiture, so faces and humans, or food, but it can be corrected with editing apps to some degree. It can be warmed up a little bit. And there's all sorts of artificial lights too. We're not just talking about like awful fluorescent overhead lighting. We're talking about sometimes artificial light that is done really well in a warmer tone. So natural and artificial is one way of looking at it. Another is just simply, warms, cools, and then that daylight is the sort of brighter white, often blue tone. Having your own language for this is really important. You can Google all day long, whether you're buying light bulbs or you're setting up a shot, what exactly the hue you're looking for is, and different people will sometimes call them different things. But just, of course, know that it goes without saying that the warm whites feel more natural, more inviting, more, soft. And then the cooler and brighter and whiter and bluer we get, not quite so much. The position of your light is so important. So the distance and position of that source will directly impact the look and feel of the photo. Soft window light will produce minimal shadows and often even tones. Sometimes it can be too bright, but if you've got, sunlight up above or behind you and and you're facing the window, it might be the perfect amount of filtration. So you got to kind of be aware of the position of that lighting and just how direct it is. The photo trick that I was taught by my photographer friend, Darian Balfour, way back, was the hand test. So no matter whether you're outside, inside, bright light, white light, whatever, if you hold your hand up beside you and you walk in a circle or you move it around, you will see in that room or in that environment that you're in where the brightest version of your hand is. Well, that's where I should place my face or my subject. So go where the light is brightest. The hand test is the easiest way to see where the shadows are and where the darkness is. And generally, of course, we want to capture the brightest spot with as minimal shadows and differentiation on different sides of our faces or subject matter as possible. Here's an example. Jamie's shooting some blackberries. So on the left, she's shooting at natural light near the window, lots of sunlight coming in. On the right, she's shooting under an artificial light. So very bright, lots of shadowing, not necessarily the photo that she wants, but neither one is worse or better. It depends on what you're after. I kind of love the one on the right because it's got this elevated aspect to it. I like the tone of the skin better, and I sort of like the berries are darker and they feel like they have more depth to them because of the shadowing. Whereas the one on the left, yes, the colors are more realistic and more, human. The berries have so much more color dimension and texture and depth because they're not so washed out. But, it depends on what you're after. So really playing with different light and knowing kind of what your brand generally requires can be very helpful. And then your feed doesn't feel like it's got a total mix of lighting and filtration and different kind of what would be considered almost like photo styles or filters. There's some consistency there. Okay, we are moving straight along to hardware. Oops. So if we take our mobile photos to the next level, we are utilizing things like tripods, mics, and possibly, accessory lighting. which can be, of course, so affordable now and easy to come by. So some of the general categories are tripods, very important for stability, particularly when we're talking about video, of course, because nobody wants to watch a shaky video, but also for photos where we're capturing a series and we need to have, you know, some stability, especially if it's a flat lay or a series where you're doing, you're aiming for stop motion, where you're adding in an element to that photo and taking several photos, or something that you're turning into a video perhaps. Or just generally to frame up the photo well and not have to worry about it becoming off-centered or offset. Ring lights, probably the most common now, especially in the era of Zooms and remote video conferencing and working from home and all the rest of it. We all got very familiar with ring lights, and you can see it in people's eyeballs sometimes when they're on TV and you can see the ring light in their eyes. There's other types of light I'm going to show you, like clip-on lights and other types of LEDs in particular. Clip-on lenses are also very popular. If you're looking for different types of shots, we've got plenty of phone cases now that come with the ability to clip on a different lens, maybe a fisheye or a wide angle. Hit Case is a company out of Vancouver that does fantastic clip-on lenses and other things. Osmo, there's many different brands that have no shortage of phone accessories and lenses too that are so affordable nowadays. LED lighting, we'll look at a few of those. That's sort of the way to go because it's really, you know, doesn't throw heat and it doesn't take much power. Selfie sticks, stabilizers, foam core, and windows. Two pretty obvious and dirt cheap things to utilize because everyone can find a window. And foam core or some other type of backdrop, whether it's fabric or cardboard, but essentially some kind of color or a large surface that would help direct or deflect light if needed, or just to act as a backdrop for a flat lay or behind your subject or whatever it is. Some of the best photography we've done is when we have a really great solid curtain behind us, or a wall, or something that adds color and maybe a bit of texture, but it doesn't take over the photo and we don't have to blur out the background. Another thing that I will say about backdrops, at one point our office was next to a flooring store, and that flooring store had no shortage of flooring samples, and our flat lays and our backdrops never looked so good because we had so many different types of porcelain and tile and wood and grain, and oh, it was delicious. So lots of things to have on hand if you're planning on doing photography regularly in your space or in a studio or at your house even. Don't underestimate how great it is to have a bunch of different colors of backdrops. So tripods, big or small, I think we've all, you know, probably got something by now that can either sit on a desktop and hold your phone in a little clip with a little spring-loaded stabilizer, or something larger that you're screwing your camera into, and maybe other accessory pieces like the mic and the light that can attach to it. So all of these things have become extremely affordable. I hate to direct you towards Amazon, but this is the best place to find them unless you've got a great local shop you can support that does sell camera and lighting accessories. And generally the camera stores certainly do, but they may not always have those little portable lav mics, lights, selfie sticks, etc. So you may have to hunt around a little bit, but Amazon is certainly a go-to place to find, you know, $30 tripods and $15 ring lights, etc. The one on the right is a Joby tripod, which is a pretty cool brand. And, you know, it's meant to have these little legs that could wrap around a telephone pole or the whatever, anything, your fridge. It's got magnetic feet, so you can just clamp this little baby tripod onto anything, anywhere you are, and have zero excuses as to why you couldn't film that day outside, at the playground, on the way into Starbucks, whatever it is. There's no reason that we can't start thinking about carrying a little light and a little tripod with us. There was a time where every member of Team Social School had their own little tripod and lighting and lav mic kit, because we were all content creators and we were all capturing testimonials and interviews and, you know, stories wherever we could find them with no excuses as to why we couldn't. So purse sized is ideal too sometimes. The lights, as I said, the ring lights there in the middle, they can attach to the top of your tripod. They can sit as, you know, smaller desktop units that hold your phone as well. They might hold a microphone too. There's so many different types. Generally, even the most affordable ring light out there will have LED lighting, and it'll flip through that warm, cool, and white light so that you can play with a little bit and the brightness. The one on the left is a clip-on ring light. These things are tiny little things that clip right on your phone, and they don't cover the microphone or the light, but they, or the speaker, I should say, or the lens. And you can have these as wired or as battery chargeable. They're like $10. They're unbelievably affordable and easy to carry with you. And then on the right, you've got an example of an LED light that is kind of a brick. So they come in very long bars, of which I use for lighting because I don't love a big ring light anymore. I'll do Zoom calls and just quickly pop on my little stick of LED lights, or one of those ones that's more square. It just adds generally more light too. So sometimes a ring light is great for a portrait or a face, but a larger light may be needed for a bigger space or a bigger shoot. You've definitely seen the big umbrella style lights that'll be on a proper photo set, and you can get those lighting kits online as well. And maybe for $100, you've got like a backdrop, you've got large light umbrellas, and just sort of bigger lights that have different filters and built-in aspects to them that make you feel like a real pro. Mics. Similarly, we can go big or small here. You've all had, you know, your probably fair share of larger mics that plug directly into your phone. iRig has a whole great suite of mics, but I love the smaller ones, just the little lavalier mics that clip to your shirt or your jacket, and you have it with you. And sometimes helpful to also have a splitter, which everyone on Team Social School has, a splitter that you can have two of those affordable $20 lav mics going to each individual device and coming back into one, or sorry, to each individual person and then coming into one device. So that singular iPhone is capturing the shot and the sound with two subjects, even if they're 6 feet apart. They're both being captured really well. There's no background noise. The sound is directly going into the mic. And the quality in the end is worth it. Of course, some of them, Rode, in fact, makes fantastic mics. We've got big podcast mics from them, as well as smaller little lav mics. Oftentimes they come with that little buffer or the toque that goes on top that'll filter out and remove any kind of surrounding noises. And then the Ceramonic iMic on the end there plugs right into your jack if you have a phone that hosts that kind of AV jack. But the idea being that at least you could direct it a little bit more towards the sound. And again, it's got a sound muffler there too that will help reduce some of that noise, surrounding noise. Okay, moving into software here. So we've got plenty of editing capabilities in the palm of our hand. The risk being, to be honest, over softwaring ourselves. Too many apps and tools, and confusion and frustration that can result. So we're going to show you a few, and hopefully you can narrow in on the ones that you know are relevant for you. And there's still a bunch to come in video as well. So we've got our photo editing tools, our tried and true set, and then we've got some over in video as well for both editing as well as producing and publishing. So Snapseed's been around quite a while now, and it's incredible for its level of control over effects and features on, or filters on, your image. You may want to play with this and you might fall in love with it, and it could be sort of an all-in-one for you. VSCO, likewise, has been around quite some time now, like since bloggers were born. And it's great for adding unique filters to your photo. It's got a great editing toolbox again. You can, it feels like presets here. And you can make that your go-to photo editing tool if you think that's for you. Afterlight, really very cool app, and it's fantastic for full feature photo editing and has plenty of creative options to it. So you can see that there's, instead of just like filters of your photo, there's really neat effects that we can add. And there's no shortage of Afterlight tutorials on the internet either. So feel free to see what other people are doing before, say, subscribing to or downloading the program and diving in yourself. Watching other people create with the tool is sometimes the best way to decide or know if it's for you or not. Similarly, Enlight is really neat for photo editing that lets you edit using curves. You can just imagine kind of the possibilities when you can play with your photo to the point where it turns into art. You can make it look super pixelated like a cartoon, or design it like an oil painting, or just all sorts of very cool effects that you see sometimes used in people's feeds, and you think, how did they do that? That looks like a painting, or that looks like a watercolor, or whatever. Well, it's oftentimes something like Enlight that will make it come to life in that way. And then touch retouch, just like it sounds. It's great for removing unwanted objects from your photos. So you can isolate an object or an element in that photo and voila, it's gone. Like the dog and the person in the foreground, just to make sure that that photo was about the guy standing there staring out, not about the dog's butt or the person running ahead. So pretty cool that you can, we can now isolate elements and remove them from our photos, and then see if that is what you're after. Adobe Lightroom. So the Adobe Creative Suite is not small. If you've ever played with Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Lightroom, there's even Adobe Reader for your PDF edits. There's so many different tools in the Adobe Creative Suite. Adobe Lightroom can be purchased on its own. It's a subscription, just like all the rest of them. But for $10 a month, you can have the ability to, for one, pulling the photos automatically as they appear in your camera roll. You can set it up to automatically push in, and then you are able to just hop into Lightroom without imports or worrying about importing, and edit the photos you want with those presets. So you've uploaded presets to Lightroom, to your account. You know that you love the Jillian Harris Christmas Lightroom preset, and also the Snapseed collection that you purchased online, or whatever it is, and you've got those ready to go. And with the click of a button, you apply that preset to every photo, and then export them to save in whatever tool you want. Sometimes I export them right to Planoly, my Instagram scheduling tool, or sometimes just back into my camera roll or into Facebook Creator Studio, where they're ready to be scheduled there. So anyway, lots we can do. Adobe Lightroom is my absolute favorite. It's pretty affordable, and it also has a storage capacity to it, which is kind of cool that it can act as your photo bank. And you can import as many or as few photos out of your phone as you want to, just to keep them in Lightroom for use when needed. So it's your turn. You're going to build your shot list. This is just like playing professional photographer, or you're the agency and you get to the photo shoot and the photographer's like, where's your shot list? And you're like, huh? What's that? Or you're like, yep, we've got these 3 months of content to shoot for today, and it starts rolling out a month from now, but we know that by then it'll be winter, so we've got to capture this, this, and this. These are our campaigns. These are our pillars. These are our key messages. And here are the shots that we need to capture as a result, because I need 90 original photos to carry me through the next 3 months for my social feeds, my blog, and my website, or whatever your platforms are and whatever your frequency and, photo requirements are. So really thinking about the shot list, and then we have a photo assignment for you. So when building your shot list and identifying the photography needed to tell your story or promote your message, and remember, we're thinking in advance here. So try to think about the time frame and then also the message. So in this assignment, we've laid out a room for 4 messages. Maybe that's 1 per month, or it could be your 4 pillars. But if you're trying to get across 4 key things for the next 60, 90 days, what are those 4 key messages? And then what are the shots that could support that message? You don't have to overthink this just yet. There's going to be more assignments and exercises coming up that allow us to really hone in on what the specifics of that shot are. But just try to broadly start imagining what some of that photography could be if you had to assign it to someone. And then exercise number 3, your photo assignment. So we're still practicing here. You don't have to go out and shoot for your campaign by any means, but the idea is that you finish this module and you immediately go and shoot. So you spend half an hour or an hour. That's what happens when we're live in class. We send everybody out for lunch to grab a bite and go shoot in the wild. And they come back with the best stuff of the neighborhood, of the building, of the lobby, of the people, of their lunch. and they're starting to use those rules of composition. They're starting to think about really fun elements that they can add to their images that feel like them or their brand. They're experimenting with light, so outdoor, indoor, artificial, natural light, and then also editing tools. So taking a few extra minutes after the fact to play with some of those photo editing tools. Start with the editing tools in your phone. Your camera has editing software in it that will allow you to play with saturation and brightness and contrast and a lot of those things. But then as well, if you want to play with Snapseed or VSCO or maybe even Adobe Lightroom, maybe you want to Google, best photo presets on the internet. And Lightroom has presets built in too. But if you did feel inclined to buy some presets and find something that worked for your brand, there's a lot of places that you can find those on the internet. So I wish you a lot of luck with that assignment, and I will see you in the final module where we're going to dive into video. So make sure that you nail your photography first before we head on into videography, because it's a big one, and I will see you there.